Hi y'all and welcome back to CISO Art. Now to finish up our lighthouse painting, you're just going to block in a long rectangle shape with white, like this. Now I'm double loading my brush with white on one side and ultramarine blue and burnt umber mixed together on the other side. So basically what we're doing is we're imagining that the sun is coming from the upper right hand side, and so our shadowed areas will be on the left side. So this is just kind of a grayish bluish shadow color. Now a way to make this rectangle shape that we're painting to look, where it's cylindrical, you could get a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard or something like that. Paper would be easier. You just fold it in half, and that way you can cut the paper at a slight angle, and it'll give you more of a tapered shape. You could just freehand it, which is what I did here. But I've painted this thing already a few times, so. I'm adding some shadow color for underneath where the cap of the beacon part of the lighthouse is going to be. Well, I just have that shadow color on my brush. Now on the other side, again, the right-hand side, as we're facing the painting, is the side that will be more of a sunny color. I'm using, gosh, I don't remember now. It's been a while since I painted this, and I'm doing a voiceover, but I think it was cad yellow, probably cad yellow medium. You could use any yellow or orange that you have. I think of those as sunny colors. And you just apply it on this side of the lighthouse, just as you did on the shadowed side, just using a different color. Now, the base of the sky, or the background behind the lighthouse, is that gradation of blue. So you may actually have to go over the white a couple of times to make sure you cover all that up. That's fine. And this is a super easy way to do clouds. I just dip my finger in some water and then just into some straight white paint, titanium white in this case, and just kind of swirl the clouds on. These are going to be those long, stringy, wispy clouds. This technique works great for that. Obviously, the less water that you mix in with the paint, you'll get a more opaque mark on the canvas. And if you use more water, you'll thin it out, so it'll be more like a glaze. Now, one word of caution, especially for these areas that are very watered down paint, that will not be real stable because it's got so much water in it. So you need to make sure that you varnish or seal over the top of that. That'll just protect it, and believe me, then it won't move. It'll be perfectly fine. But here I'm just correcting a little bit. Just use a clean wet brush to fix your marks. You can also apply your paint like I'm doing here with a paintbrush, and then smooth it out with your finger or smooth it out with a brush, either way. This is a relaxing, fun way to paint clouds. You Totally not stressed about it. It's just a really nice, simple way to do it. So totally off subject here, totally unrelated to painting, but I just felt like I had to share. So I recently discovered a fabulous way to peel boiled eggs so that the shells come off nice and clean, and you don't get the jaggedy, chunked eggs because the eggs stuck to the inside of the peeling. So, and this was purely by accident that I found it, but it's worked out really, really well. So you boil your eggs, and I like mine really hard boiled. Then you dump out the hot water, put in a little bit of cold water, and then plunge a bunch of ice cubes down into that water. And this is the secret. Then you crack the shells just a little bit. You can use like a little spoon or a little table knife, and just kind of do a little crack, not the whole thing, and don't smash it, just a little bit of crack, and then leave it in the ice water for probably about 5 minutes. And what happens is that ice water, or at least I think this is what happens, the ice water seeps into the little cracks, and so it gets underneath the shell, and it helps to lift it away from the egg itself. And then once you peel it, you can make beautiful deviled eggs, and you don't lose a lot of the egg white. Anyway, try it. It's working for me. Okay, so this black bit is the bottom of where the rotating beacon, the light beacon is. What's important on here is that you see it's a shape to indicate an ellipse, and it's curving kind of up, and then that way it gives you the impression of looking up, from our point of view. Now for that part, I just used straight black out of the tube. So using this flat brush, I'm just indicating some windows, and I'm just making little vertical lines, as you can see here. Super, super simple, super easy. Now, obviously the white paint and the yellow paint is dry underneath this. So I'm using red and yellow and some white to add a different color into all this blue and white and gray and brown, just brighten it up a little. I don't know that realistically you would see this kind of color on a bright, sunny day with no storms around, but it just adds a little bit of warmth to kind of a cold painting. My daughter's dog is keeping me company. I hope you're not hearing him growling. He's playing with his toy. And so this is just straight red I'm adding over to the left side. So now we're going to paint this really pretty red door. And it's the same thing as the light in that light beacon part of the lighthouse. I just chose red because it adds, go play, Ben. Go on. Getting the dog out of here. It just adds a little splash of color just to change up all that blue and gray and white. The red is going over the dried white part of the building, and you may need a couple of coats to sufficiently cover it. And we want it to look recessed, so I'm just going to add a little black to the red mix to add a little shadow color on the right-hand side and on the top, so that it'll look like it's recessed. I'm going to put in a little indication of maybe a door frame or something like that too, doorknob. Okay, for the water, I'm just using ultramarine blue and white. And it's not really the focal point of this whole thing, so I'm not being terribly careful. Just making some horizontal stripes of color, essentially. Just be a little bit random with it. Add some white to indicate, the little waves off in the distance. I'm adding a little bit of brown or burnt umber to my mix here, just to make it look like it's closer to the land. This area will be covered up by a little crashing wave, so I'm not real careful about that either. And I'm just using my brush strokes to indicate the direction of the way that the water is curling over into a wave. And this paint is very wet and kind of thickly applied right here, so when it's dried off some, I'll clean that up a little bit. So I'm using a very small round brush that comes to a sharp point. You could also use a liner brush or a rigger brush. That would work very well also. And just indicating, I don't know, like a little guardrail or something in case the lighthouse keeper needed to do any maintenance on the outside of that beacon area. And this just, I don't know, it just adds a little level of detail. This is not based on a photograph. I mean, I looked at a bunch of different photographs of lighthouses, but I'm not copying one in particular. So this is kind of just imaginary. You could certainly decorate your lighthouse with different colors. They have striped ones, and some are red and white, and some are black and white. I haven't seen any other colors, but I didn't look a whole lot. I saw some that are striped vertically, and I saw some with a diamond, kind of like a harlequin pattern on them. That was cool. Some have stripes, what you normally see. Some have the stripes that wind around in a spiral like a barber pole. Anyway, so you could do it any number of ways if you wanted to, or just make it plain white like this one. I read, because I didn't know if there was a particular reason why they're decorated in the color schemes and the patterns that they are. The only thing that I saw that governed it was just that they needed to be recognizably different from their neighboring lighthouses. Like, so here in the United States, on the East Coast, in Virginia and get the mid-Atlantic states going up to the New England states, there's quite a number of lighthouses along that coast, and the ones that are adjacent to each other need to be recognizable to the ship captains, and that's why they need to look different. That way the ship captain will look and see, certain one, and he'll say, oh, okay, I'm off of Hilton Head right now. I guess in case, their navigation stuff was out. Otherwise, I'm sure they know where they are, GPS-wise and everything. But still, it's a good old-fashioned second way to tell where you are. So back to the black in that little fine brush and just putting in, I don't know, like window panes or whatever. Stuff, metal bracing and struts that protect the glass. Now I'm just dipping my finger in some watered down white and flicking to indicate some splashes. You could do the toothbrush thing, or you could use another paintbrush and flick paint on. You can dab it on with little dots if you want to be very precise and specific. And this is just to indicate the water spray where the wave is crashing against that land mass. Now, looking at my ground that the lighthouse is resting on, I feel like it looks like it needs more of a platform to rest on. So I'm just going to increase the size of that plateau by adding some more land to the back. And I might have to do this in layers, so I'm putting this darker color first, which is burnt umber with a little bit of ultramarine blue in it and some white. I want more on the brown side. And then you can go back over it with a lighter color. But you need to do the dark first. And the reason why is so it's not a smooth, flat color. We want a little bit of variation. And that automatically happens when you layer colors. When you do this little tapping motion with your brush, you get some built-in variations in the texture as well. Pretty happy with how it's all turning out so far. I just want to add some more detail into the rocks, and that was, I'm accomplishing that by just adding some little dark lines and light colored lines as well, just to indicate some cracks in the rocks. Just a dark color. And the liner brush will give you some finer lines than that little flat brush. So I'm switching to that. You know, you could carry this to the nth degree and really get fussy with it, especially if you find a photo that you're trying to copy, but at some point you, you need to stop. That's the trick, finding when is the right time to stop. Now I'm adding this lighter color to the back of this plateau that the lighthouse is resting on, and that signaled to me, oh yeah, don't forget the shadow, the cast shadow of the lighthouse itself. So I'll adjust that shape a little bit. My wave was still a little wet, so I got some white paint on my hands. I have to fix that. And I just use the clean part of my paper towel and dip it in the water and wipe that off. And here I am just working on that shadow shape, cast shadow. And this is just a darker mixture of that land color that we've been using. So I'm hoping your takeaways from this little simple painting was how to do the sky, how to get that softly blended gradation, and how to do those super simple and super easy wispy clouds. Also, some basic ideas about shading a cylinder shape and creating craggy rocks. Thanks for watching. Please give me a like or a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next video.